Day 3 of the second Bahrain test did not leave much room for soft interpretation. Charles LA closed pre-season running with a 1 minute 31.992 seconds, the only lap in the 1 minute 31 seconds all winter. A margin of 0.79 seconds over Lando Norris cannot simply be brushed aside, even allowing for tyre compound differences. But what should concern Ferrari's rivals most is not the headline number on the timing screen. It is the combination behind it. Ferrari appeared to assemble elements that no other front-running team has yet shown simultaneously. Extreme aerodynamic efficiency through its rotating rear wing concept, the most consistently impressive launch performance in practice starts, and stable repeatable race simulation pace in high temperatures. This was not a single light fuel statement lap. Leclerc completed 132 laps on the same day with no major interruption. Set that against Mercedes, solid but conservative. McLaren competitive but openly conceding ground. Red Bull no longer clearly the reference point. Even George Russell publicly speculating about Ferrari's turbo configuration is telling. That is not normal pre-season rhetoric. If Ferrari have genuinely understood the balance between energy deployment, drag reduction, and traction better than their rivals under these 2026 regulations, then this is more than an encouraging start. It could be the structural foundation of early era control. So, the question is this: did Ferrari genuinely reset the competitive benchmark on day 3 in Bahrain, or are their rivals still holding something substantial in reserve? Let's break it down in full and make sure you stay with us to the end, because the lap time alone does not tell the whole story. Yes, Leclerc's 1 minute 31.992 seconds came on the softer C4 compound, while Norris at his best 1 minute 32.871 seconds on the harder C3. Tire delta matters, fuel loads matter, engine modes matter. But even when those caveats are applied, Ferrari's advantage on the final afternoon was not marginal. Max Verstappen was over a second away. George Russell was more than a second adrift. And crucially, Ferrari did not arrive at that lap in isolation. He began on the C3, progressed through longer runs, and ultimately worked down to the C4 for the outright benchmark. He completed 132 laps in total. Earlier in the week, he had already built mileage steadily, and across the 2 Bahrain tests, Ferrari covered more than 300 kilometers without a major reliability failure. In a new regulation cycle defined by complexity, near 50/50 electric and combustion power, active aerodynamics, revised braking demands, that level of operational stability is not trivial. Contrast that with Aston Martin, whose final day was curtailed to just 6 laps for Lance Stroll amid Honda battery concerns and a shortage of power unit parts. Or McLaren, which missed the opening 2 hours of the final afternoon session with Lando Norris restricted to 47 laps. Ferrari's program, by comparison, looked composed and controlled. The technical centerpiece of that performance remains the rotating rear wing. When straight mode was activated, Ferrari's upper rear wing element did not simply open like a conventional DRS-style flap. It rotated dramatically through approximately 180 to 220 degrees, effectively reorienting the aerodynamic surface. Early telemetry indicated a gain of between 8 and 10 km/h. Simulations suggested a drop of roughly 75% in rear wing downforce in straight configuration and a substantial shift in the downforce to drag ratio. The FIA confirmed the concept was legal. Technical Director Nicholas Tambasi stated that the governing body had generally speaking encouraged solutions that reduce drag. This is not a loophole about to be closed. It is an interpretation within the rules. More importantly, it is integrated. Ferrari did not simply bolt on a radical wing. The differential has been positioned as far rearward as regulations allow within the 60 mm limit behind the rear axle, creating space for an extended diffuser architecture and a flow-turning device powered by the exhaust. Rival aerodynamicists have noted that the rear packaging required to enable this solution makes rapid replication unlikely. It is not a tweak, it is an architectural choice, and that architecture links directly to another area in which Ferrari appeared strong: traction and launch performance. Across multiple practice starts in Bahrain, Ferrari's getaways were visibly cleaner than those of their rivals. Lewis Hamilton, in particular, surged past cars ahead of him in repeated simulations. Red Bull's technical leadership acknowledged that in low-speed traction, they look very strong. That is a diplomatic phrasing, but the implication is clear. George Russell went further. He publicly speculated that Ferrari seemed to be able to run higher gears than other manufacturers, suggesting they may be operating with a smaller turbocharger configuration. In the context of 2026, removal of the MGH turbo characteristics matter more than ever. A smaller turbo that spools more quickly can deliver usable torque earlier, which in turn supports cleaner launches and improved traction in slow-speed phases. Drivers do not typically discuss rival engine architecture in testing. The fact Russell felt compelled to comment indicates that Mercedes have been studying Ferrari's data closely and that something stood out. Energy deployment is the other crucial pillar. Norris was candid after the final day. At the moment, we are not very close to Ferrari. We are not bad, but we are not fast enough. He added that Ferrari appeared to have a deployment advantage. And, as he put it, when someone just has a deployment advantage, that is just a beautiful bit of lap time to have in your pocket. Without trying, you can just go quicker. That is not about bravery or setup finesse. That is about systemic efficiency. In 2026, with electrical deployment forming half of the total power output, how and when you release that energy defines competitiveness. If Ferrari have found a more efficient balance between harvesting, deployment, and drag reduction, then that is not a short-term edge. It is foundational. Red Bull, meanwhile, did not project dominance. Verstappen described the new generation of cars as Formula E on steroids, highlighting how driver inputs now have a massive effect on the energy side of things. Pierre Wash admitted, "We are not the benchmark. We clearly see the top three teams, Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren, are in front of us." When a technical director publicly positions his team behind three rivals before the season begins, that is not theatre. Mercedes did show flashes. Kimi Antonelli's 1 minute 32.803 earlier in testing stood as the benchmark prior to ultimate lap. Russell's long runs were steady, but on the final day, Mercedes did not respond to Ferrari's late push. Whether that reflects sandbagging or limitation remains to be seen. What is clear is that Ferrari were prepared to demonstrate performance. Race simulation pace adds another layer. Leclerc's longer runs in 35-degree heat were described trackside as comparable with the strongest data seen all week. This was not a car that overheated, faded, or degraded excessively. It maintained stability across stints. That stability matters in light of Ferrari's 2025 decision. Team principal Fred Weiser admitted that halting development of the previous car early had consequences. "It was my decision," he said, "and I take full responsibility for the fact that we were focused on 2026. Perhaps I also underestimated the psychological impact of this choice on the team, on the drivers, and on myself." Ferrari finished fourth in the 2025 Constructors' standings, 435 points behind champions McLaren with no victories. That was the cost of prioritizing this moment. Now the SF26 appears to reflect that investment. Correlation between simulation and track has been described as strong. Vassar remained measured in Bahrain, stating, "We are not speaking at all about performance so far." Everybody is focused on himself, but he also conceded, "I always prefer to stay ahead." Hamilton's adaptation remains a subplot. Even Capelli suggested he still lacks the right feeling at the front and has not yet found full smoothness in high-speed phases. Jolyon Palmer observed that Leclerc looks happier in the car at this stage. Yet Hamilton himself has emphasized that this is a car he has helped shape. "A bit of my DNA is within it," he said. "I'm more connected to this one for sure." That connection, combined with the technical base, could prove significant once the season begins. Of course, caution is warranted. Testing can mislead. Tire compounds distort margins. Fuel loads remain undisclosed. Mercedes may have held something back. McLaren's missed running complicates interpretation. Alpine's Steve Nielsen summed it up. If you had asked me in Barcelona, I would have probably said Mercedes is head and shoulders above the rest. If you had asked me on Wednesday, I would probably have said Red Bull. If you had asked me yesterday, I would have said, wow, you want to see Ferrari's long run. Even Leclerc tempered expectations. It is still difficult to understand where we really stand. He said, teams are hiding their true form. I believe everyone is keeping their true pace hidden. Yet what cannot be hidden is structural design. A rotating rear wing integrated with diffuser geometry, a turbo configuration that appears to support superior traction, deployment efficiency acknowledged by direct rivals, clean reliability across 2 weeks. Those are not illusions generated by low fuel. So, as the paddock heads to Melbourne for the season-opening Australian Grand Prix, the central tension is clear. Has Ferrari simply executed a strong pre-season program? Or have they genuinely read the regulatory shift more completely than anyone else? If the answer is the latter, then the narrative of 2026 may already be tilting in red. But what do you think? Was Day 3 in Bahrain the first real statement of a Ferrari era under these regulations? Or will Melbourne expose a very different competitive order? Let me know your view in the comments below.